Hello and welcome to ITV News Meridian.
Tonight's headlines in the southeast. A father-to-be dies after being hit by a vehicle near Ditchling. He was just 22. Sussex police asked for help in tracing a vehicle that failed to stop at the scene.
So full alive. He had such an amazing sense of humour. He was really hard-working and really looking forward to becoming a dad in October.
The woman who died with serious injuries after falling unseen at a care home in Folkestone. An inquest into the death of 92-year-old Olivia Martin.
Also this Monday evening, joining Chaucer and Marlowe in Canterbury, a sculpture of Britain's first professional woman writer. But do you know her name?
And the polo enthusiasts from a village near Gravesend who've come up with a novel alternative to the sport of kings. Good evening. Police are tonight trying to trace the driver involved in a hit-and-run collision that killed a 22-year-old man in Sussex.
Father-to-be Jack Brandon was hit by a vehicle near Ditchling yesterday morning. The vehicle didn't stop. Today, Mr Brandon's devastated family and workmates laid flowers at the scene.
James Dunham is in Ditchling. James, emotional scenes there today.
Incredibly emotional, Sangeeta. This 22-year-old was described today as an amazing person who was due to become a father to a baby girl in October. Friends and family of Jack Brandon say that he was walking home from a wedding in the early hours of yesterday morning on this 60-mile-per-hour road. He'd called his girlfriend up to let her know that he'd be 10 minutes, but he did not make it, and he was hit by a vehicle at around 20 to 7. Well, at the scene this afternoon, dozens of people that knew Jack came to lay flowers and messages, but also to reflect. Among them, the parents of Jack's girlfriend, who paid this tribute.
He was so full alive. He had such an amazing sense of humour.
It's funny because, like, when I said a joke, he got it, which is always good because my jokes aren't. So, but he got that completely, and
He was really hard-working and really looking forward to becoming a dad in October with Sophie. We're lucky enough that he knows he was having a little girl. He's named her, so he was around for that, which we're really grateful for.
You know, if you could pick somebody for your child to marry, he was all right.
The GoFundMe page to support Jack's partner has so far raised over £3,000. Crucially tonight, Sussex police want to hear from anyone that has seen or any garages that have repaired a white van in the last 24 hours that has a missing passenger wing mirror and damaged headlight. You can contact 101 if you have any information at all.
James, thank you.
And you can find more on all of our top stories today on our website. The address itv.com/Meridian.
Rules on night flights could be relaxed to help ease chaos at Gatwick over the summer holidays. The government is planning a one-off amnesty on strict quotas that usually control how many planes can take off and land overnight. However, campaigners against noise and emissions from nearby villages have said they're dismayed that any easing of restrictions is being considered.
The National Crime Agency has said tackling people smuggling is a priority following an operation with French officials. It was announced yesterday that 15 people had been arrested in connection with the deaths of 27 migrants trying to cross the Channel in November. Their boat sank off the coast of Calais. Those arrested were thought to be parts of an organised network.
East Sussex Mental Health Service is urging people to seek help early if they notice a change in our stress levels or mood. Health in Mind is a free and confidential NHS service for adults in the region. According to figures, 1 in 4 people in England will experience a mental health difficulty of some kind each year.
An inquest in Maidstone has been hearing how a 92-year-old great-great-grandmother died after she injured her head in a care home.
Olivia Martin was a resident at the Grange in Folkestone in December 2021 when carers say she slipped from her bed. Bruising to her eye was noticed later that morning.
Well, a police report concluded that there was no evidence of willful neglect. Abigail Bracken is at the inquest for us. Abigail, what more can you tell us?
Olivia Martin was a great-great-grandmother who died at the age of 92 after suffering a head injury in the care home where she was living in Folkestone. Now, Olivia had 3 children, and today multiple generations of her family were here at the Coroner's Court sitting at County Hall in Maidstone to listen to the evidence. Now, the cause of her death was heard to be bleeding on the brain caused by a fracture of her skull. Now, Olivia Martin had Alzheimer's and was living at the Grange care home in Folkestone. And today the court heard evidence from 2 of her carers that were looking after her on the day of her injury. And much of the evidence that was heard today was centred on how and when she got that injury and when that was picked up on. Now, night carers Charlie Manderson and Perry Keem had both been helping Olivia to get dressed that morning. She was sitting up, she was on the side of the bed when one of the carers, Perry Keem, was called away to look after another patient. Now, Charlie Manderson told the court that Olivia had slipped down the bed and she used her leg to slowly lower her to the floor, and she said that she did not hit her head. Now, when Perry Keem returned, they had both lifted Olivia back up onto a chair with a lift under the arms. Now, both of them were given written warnings from their employer for not using a hoist in this instance, but this was not thought to be the cause of her injury. Now, there was much evidence about when Olivia Martin's injuries were first noticed and whether she could have hit her head by banging her head on the table that was put in front of her chair after she was lifted from the floor. Now, Olivia was later taken to hospital where they identified a fractured skull and bleeding on her brain, and she died in another care home in December 2021. Now, Kent County Council started a safeguarding investigation following concerns raised by the family at the time, but a police investigation concluded that there was no evidence to suggest that Olivia Martin was a victim of willful neglect or assault. Now, the Coroner's Court today adjourned for a later date as they are now seeking more medical evidence.
Abigail Bracken in Maidstone, thank you very much.
Teachers are warning that the first post-COVID school leavers are being shortchanged as universities are being more hesitant with offers.
A baby boom in the early 2000s means there are more 18-year-olds applying for fewer places as universities claim they were oversubscribed during the pandemic.
This means that students predicted to receive A-star grades are, some say, missing out. Here's Catherine Walker.
18-year-old Ellie has always dreamed of becoming a doctor. But despite being predicted some of the top grades in her school, she's been rejected from all of her chosen universities.
Obviously, I was really disappointed and I spent a lot of time revising because obviously you need AAA to do medicine. And then when I got my rejections after my interviews as well, it was a bit of, well, what am I supposed to do now? Because it's been my plan and my goal for a really long time.
It's been a similar story for Isa. Although her teachers expect her to get A's and A-stars, she hasn't received any offers to study medicine.
It really is going to impact my whole life, basically. It's not just this 1 year of my life is impacted. Just felt a bit disappointed because I put in all that hard work and effort and it kind of felt like it was wasted.
New research suggests that universities are looking to stabilise numbers after a surge during the pandemic. Overall, the offer rate for university applications is down by 4%. At the most selective universities, offers have dropped by 7%. And medicine and dentistry applicants have felt the biggest impact, with universities making 13% fewer offers. After 2 years of disruption from COVID, one head teacher says it's taking its toll.
I think it's really difficult for some of these students because they were the first year that fell off the edge of the cliff and didn't sit exams, and for them it was all about coming back to school and to college and building resilience and having a sense of a good future. And I think for them, they work really hard, they're getting predicted good grades and there's nowhere to go.
It's a frustration shared by this shadow education secretary, who claims this shortage of places was avoidable.
There has been a total lack of planning. We knew this problem would be coming even from last year, where we had all of that chaos around exams then. and there hasn't been the planning that needs to go on with the universities, working with them. So ministers working directly with universities to make sure that our children are able to move on to that next step in their lives.
But the government claims there isn't a problem and says they are investing in university places.
The government does not cap university places. The only areas which we do have a cap in place is for dentistry and medicine. And we have invested a record amount in our universities in the last decade to enable them to grow places where they want, where the demand is there. And we know that some courses are growing this year. Some have decided to restrict some places, and they're autonomous. They are independent in law.
Universities UK say they won't know if and how many students have been affected until results day. But for those top candidates who've already faced rejection, it's proving to be a testing summer. Catherine Walker, ITV News.
Over to Claire Marchant from UCAS, the University Admissions Service that also provides support to students. Ms Marchant, thank you for talking to us. Now, in previous years, students who were not accepted onto a course would go through clearing. Is that not happening this year?
Clearing absolutely is there for students, and we know when it opens there'll be over 30,000 courses available to students, and alongside that there'll be higher degree apprenticeships through UCAS Career Finder, so lots of choice this year and lots of people around to support students.
So what advice is it to the students who haven't got any offers at the moment?
So if you're not holding an offer, or you're actually getting to the point of results days and you find you haven't got the place that you want, my advice to you is do your research now on a plan B. Make sure you've got your options scoped out, you've done a bit of research so that decision, when it comes to it, is informed. Look across the 30,000 courses. We've got Clearing Plus, a new digital service a couple of years ago available to you, so that's also there as well. And there's lots of UCAS advisors on hand over social media, but also over the phones, as well as your teachers and advisors, and people in universities and colleges on hand to help you guide you through the process.
Do they have to wait for their results before they can do that, though?
No, absolutely. When clearing opens, you can start to do the research. You can be doing the research right now just to look across those courses and see what can potentially be matched to you. You don't have to wait for results day. And that would really be my single biggest piece of advice to both students and parents, is do your research now. Start looking now. Start thinking about choices. Start thinking about plan Bs. We do know at the end of the summer, over 80% of students will likely to get their firm choice, which is absolutely great. For those who don't, there's still lots of choice available.
Claire Marchant from UCAS, good advice, thank you.
Thank you.
A chemist that is yet to reopen in Gravesend following a fire has been targeted by thieves. Pender Pharmacy had to close after a blaze destroyed the pub next door over a month ago. Prescription medication as well as beauty products were taken in 2 break-ins. Police say a number of arrests have been made.
Fly tipping has increased massively in parts of Medway, and the council is being urged to install CCTV in the worst affected areas. The problem's particularly bad around Finsbury, Wainscott and Upnor, with huge mounds of construction and commercial waste illegally dumped on an industrial scale. Locals are concerned it's causing damage to the environment as well as public health.
Families struggling to feed their children or pay their bills could be given a lifeline in the Swale area of Kent. The council has almost £500,000 to help people access food parcels or vouchers to help pay for energy and water. The move's aimed at families and pensioners, but councillors are urging anyone in trouble to get in touch.
A family in Crawley have been reunited with their dog almost 2 years after it went missing. Mum of 3, Hayley Smithson, said she had almost given up hope of seeing Mabel the poodle again after she went missing during the pandemic, but her pet was finally found 40 miles away by staff at Heathrow Airport. Now, Kent teenager Malcolm Mide Madriola was stabbed to death outside a London tube station in 2018 while he tried to protect another boy. His family from Dartford have fought against knife crime ever since.
Now a play in his honour at his old school is hoping to give young people the opportunity to develop their music skills and give them the ability to express their feelings about the society they're growing up in. Here's Martin Stew.
Singing in harmony about the discord on our streets. Pupils from Harris Academy in Peckham rehearse with the teenagers who wrote the songs. Authentic voices set to music by the multi-storey orchestra.
We're speaking of like the perspective of the gang, or like the perspective of the girl, and just it's all based on perspectives. And I feel like living in this kind of environment, you kind of know what the perspective is.
Sisters and Dupree know the pain of loss. 4 years ago, Malcolm Midi Madriola, who was from their school, was stabbed to death after he stepped in to help a near stranger. At the time, they were in year 9.
We started writing, but we hadn't written a huge amount. And the parallels between Malcolm's death and what we were writing was actually quite scary, and we decided that we wanted to continue to honour Malcolm.
Their show, called Ends, is being performed next week to an audience, including Malcolm's family.
Life has inspired people, particularly his mates, to want to live right.
You know, I miss my brother. Like, honestly, that's all it is. I miss my brother. But then knowing that other people still keep him in his heart, it's more than proud. Like, I can't even describe that kind of feeling.
With the family's support and blessing, the boys plan to take the show to a wider audience.
Shown on TV through documentaries or films, but through live music with younger kids actually singing, and it shows that the younger generation has something to look up for, and they are fighting for change, as the song says. So I think it's just a great movement.
Unity of voice, bringing hope and light after the darkest of days. Martin Stew, ITV News.
Still to come on ITV News Meridian. Which of these 4 sculptures will be chosen to stand in Canterbury, celebrating the life of Britain's first professional woman writer?
And the polo enthusiasts who got on their bikes have discovered a new version of the sport.
And you can keep up to date on our website, itv.com/Meridian. You can call us and follow us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. And the ITV Evening News continues here at 6:30 with more now, Lucrezia Millarini.
Coming up, the latest on allegations of sexual harassment by Conservative MP Chris Pincher. What did the Prime Minister know before promoting the MP at the last reshuffle? Inflation hits school dinners. Suppliers warn rising food and fuel prices coupled with supply chain delays could impact school meals. And we talk to British tennis hopeful Cameron Norrie ahead of his Wimbledon quarter-final tomorrow. Join me for those stories and more at 6:30.
Let's get some more sport now. Sarah is with us. Good evening. What have you got for us?
Thanks, Matt. Well, we start with cricket, and the women's team representing the South was celebrating this weekend after victory over the Central Sparks. And some members of the Southern Braves squad have also been out in the community celebrating National Cricket Week, supporting youngsters for whom they are role models. This event was arranged by the charity Chance to Shine, which aims to make the sport more accessible to a wider cross-section of society. Sussex bowler Tara Norris from Eastbourne says she's thrilled to help the game grow.
It's absolutely fantastic. I was saying previously, I never had any female role models growing up as a kid, and see, women in sport is fantastic. So actually, Chance to Shine were the charity that got me involved in cricket in the first place. So it's brilliant to be here and to see the girls having fun. It's fantastic.
In football, Gillingham boss Neil Harris says Saturday's friendly match at Folkestone was a great test, and he's positive about what he's seen so far after some tough sessions at the training ground. The Gills celebrated a 2-0 win, and next up, Deal tomorrow evening. Now, polo is a quintessentially English sport and perfect for the summer months, but for most people, the lack of a horse makes it impossible to play. That's why a group of friends from Vigo village near Gravesend swapped the ponies for bicycles to invent bike polo, or at least they thought they did, before finding out it had already been created in the 1890s. But Oakenden are the first to create a women's team. They've been hosting an international tournament in the hope of reviving the game, as Joe Caution's been finding out.
It's fast-paced and flirts with the right side of danger. But being on 2 wheels makes the Oakenden bike polo team a far less exclusive club to be a part of. And that's exactly how they like it.
Can't afford a string of polo ponies in a pub one day, thinking of fun things to do at a just a fun sports day, and thought we'll get bikes out, buy some plastic mallets, and just get on.
We actually thought we'd invented it.
We did think we'd invented it.
We thought we'd invented it.
We did think we'd invented it.
And then the power of Google, we found, in fact, we hadn't invented it. It did exist, but years ago.
What you're telling me is you came up with this, or reinvented it, in a pub?
Yes, essentially, yes.
Nikki and Kate are two of just a handful of ladies to play in what is the only competitive ladies team in the world, something they're keen to build on.
Quite a masculine sport. I know it is because it has been throughout history since 1895. Women weren't allowed to play in the initial period. So I think since its beginning that women have had a bit of a struggle getting into the sport, and it's why we decided to break barriers and have our own team. And the thing that keeps people coming back, I think, is the fact that you get a really nice adrenaline rush. It's so fast paced, everything changes all the time.
A thrilling social game then, but what are some of the rules?
Bike polo does take a little bit of getting used to. You can only hold the bike with your left hand and you have to have the mallet in your right hand at all times. And if you're a bit like me and you're not very good at multitasking, then it might take a little bit of getting used to, because it's a bit of balance, speed and precision. And if it all comes together at once, you get something like this. Now I've got to work out how to stop.
And once I did make it off the field, the professionals turned up the intensity.
We've been playing here for about 20 years, and this weekend is part of the European Championship, where we have several French teams and several English teams vying for the European Cup.
A fierce competition, but all of the teams made up a welcoming bike polo family. Combine it with a sunny day and some great camaraderie, and it might just tempt you to get on your bike. Joe Caution, ITV News, Gravesend.
Looks good fun. I don't know if my balance would be quite good enough though.
I'm sure mine wouldn't be. Sarah, that was great. Thank you.
Now, when it comes to the giants of the stage and the page, Canterbury can claim Christopher Marlowe and, of course, Geoffrey Chaucer. But there's one writer whose profile isn't as big as it should be.
Yes, Aphra Behn was the first woman to write for a living, the most prolific playwright of her generation. Yet not a single statue of her stands anywhere. Tony Green went to meet the people who want to change all that.
She should be a towering figure in literature, yet these maquettes are the only sculptures of playwright, poet, novelist and spy Aphra Behn. They're on tour to see which one people would like to see, slightly larger than life, in her home city of Canterbury, giving the first woman who wrote for a living some long overdue credit.
She was a playwright, novelist, poet, translator from French, so successful in her own day that she's buried in Westminster Abbey. So we should know who she is. English students, students of English, all study her today. But beyond that, nobody knows who she is.
We're touring 4 statues, asking the public which of these 4 designs should be put up at 6 foot high, life and a quarter. And we want the public to engage and help us with this decision, because there's always going to be a critic, but at least we know we've got it on the majority side and when we get it right.
The current stop on the tour is Penshurst Place, which has a long association with women writers.
We're delighted to be helping Aphra Behn emerge from the undeserved obscurity she's been in. At Penshurst we have a history in the family of supporting pioneering women writers like Mary Sidney Herbert or Lady Mary Roth.
Visitors got to vote for their favourite design.
The sculptures were, beautiful, and when you sort of learn what the details are on there, you see more than originally when you see.
Yeah, I'd never heard of her. Very nice sculptures. All really good, interesting.
I think it's a very good choice there. Difficult to make a choice, but so very different.
I voted for Astrea, the one by Victoria, and I thought it encapsulated everything about Aphra Behn, who I'd never heard of until now, even though I studied English literature. It's not finished. It seems like it's got all sorts of. It's not very polished, but it has the sternness and it sort of represents all of her contributions.
The statuettes will stay at Penshurst tomorrow and then head to Hampshire. They'll come to Canterbury Cathedral on Saturday to attract more votes there and online until the poll closes on September the 1st. Tony Green, ITV News, Penshurst.
I think it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter which one they choose. Just get a statue of Aphra Behn.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And
I'm glad I wasn't the only person who hadn't actually heard of it.
Yeah, and we're both English students.
Feel better now.
Yeah, we do.
Apologies.
Now, Pip is with us. Pip, it's July now, so June's gone. What do we know about the month that's been?
Well, June, not especially exceptional in itself, but there are some interesting things to note. Let's take a look at the stats for June. So it came in 24% drier than average, a smidge sunnier as well, but it was also 0.6 Celsius warmer than average. That's what I want to pick up on, because not a lot in itself, but when you look at it in the context of the whole year so far, January to June, every month has come in warmer than average, and that's now put us in the top 5 warmest starts to a year since records began back in 1884. Furthermore, the Met Office have just concluded a recent study on record-breaking June temperatures, and what they're finding is that we're 10 times more likely to see a record-breaking June temperature now than we were just 20 years ago. So something we'd expect to see once every 700 years could now happen once every 70 years. We didn't quite make it this year, but that's a pretty alarming acceleration over a fairly short period of time.
Absolutely. So a warm start to the year. Can we predict whether there's more of the same coming for July?
Well, yeah, July, so we've started off on actually a fairly fresh note, quite a bit unsettled weather over the weekend, but this week we are going to see a gradual trend upwards in those temperatures, and it looks as though next week there's a chance it could get warmer still. But, you know, great news for the summer holidays, but it could well turn out to be another month above average to add to the list currently accumulating in 2022.
OK, well, for the time being, thank you very much indeed. Let's get a check on that full forecast then. With the details, here's Pip.
Feels like home, whatever the weather. Valent Boilers and Heat Pumps sponsors ITV Meridian Weather.
Well, after a very promising start to the week, little change expected through the next few days. Lots of dry weather, sunny spells continuing to come and go, and warming up as the week wears on. It's all thanks to high pressure, currently situated out towards the southwest of the UK. It will edge ever closer over the next few days, maintaining settled conditions and keeping any fronts very much at bay out towards the north and west. Out there at the moment then, still a bit of cloud on the scene, but this will tend to thin and dissipate through the course of this evening and tonight, leaving us with some fairly lengthy clear spells. Now, for most of us, temperatures will stay in double figures, for many still up in the low teens, but there will be some rural spots just dipping down to around 8 or 9 degrees by the end of the night. And then tomorrow, well, really much the same as today, so probably the best of the sunshine will be first thing, and then as the day wears on, once again, we'll start to pull in more in the way of cloud, but it will stay dry. It should still be fairly bright, and in the best of the brightness, temperatures still doing pretty well for the time of year. Highs around 22, perhaps locally 23 degrees. These are your high tide times for tomorrow. Then for Dover, there 3:30 in the morning, 5 to 4 in the afternoon. Beyond that, as I said, little in the way of change. High pressure continuing to build in from the south and west. So as we head overnight into Wednesday, that keeps any further fronts at bay out towards the north, and it sets us up for a remainder of a very good week. Lots of dry weather, plenty of sunshine, and those temperatures on the rise day by day.
Valent sponsors ITV Meridian Weather.
Hello, summer. Piri sponsors ITV Pollen Count.
Plenty of dry and settled weather on the cards over the next few days then, and whilst grass pollen season is now slowly drawing to a close, levels over the coming days will generally be in the high category.
And you're up to date in the southeast. In just a moment, the ITV Evening News continues here with Lucrezia Millarini.
I'm back with your late updates at around 11:15 this evening. For now, though, from the team here, thank you very much for watching. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.